all that kind of stuff. There is a different level of hype that goes into playing a top 10 team in A&M, coming to your house that had not lost a game in SEC play, and going on the road and playing a Vanderbilt team that has overachieved quite a bit this year in what is going to be a probably less than hostile environment on Saturday. No matter which way, no matter what you say, it's definitely a different dynamic between these two games.
No, definitely. Like, the excitement, energy, and hype coming off the last game it's superior to whatever you're going to face this week. But that's especially true when you have to go to Vanderbilt, where, look, we just don't know, like, how is that crowd going to be there? It's a 4:15 game. It's on a Saturday. The weather might not be great. I would expect this to be a game where, like, look, the crowd might not be hostile, but South Carolina's going to have to really get up for this game. And I think they've done a good job of not letting themselves get too far ahead or even overlooking this game or underestimating Vanderbilt. Because, look, this is a good team that they're playing this weekend, arguably just as good as anyone they faced on the schedule. And if you take an opponent lightly, we know what happens in these sort of situations.
And that's a good point that you bring up about the weather for this Saturday. And I'm trying to pull up the latest weather report for what's going to be happening around game time. It is showing rain in the forecast. And when you look at the middle of the day, it looks like light shower, so I don't think it's going to be a torrential downpour, but nevertheless, you could be dealing with the wet ball the entire game, and you're dealing with two offenses that don't throw the ball particularly well. Obviously, two quarterbacks that like to take the ball and run themselves quite a bit, so this could really come down to which quarterback is in better shape to carry the rock on Saturday.
No, most definitely, and I feel like we'll see what happens, but, I mean, look, this is, like you said, this really will be a battle of the runners in this game, and I think Pavia has been very, very good for Vanderbilt, but at the same time, I feel like Sellers has been pretty good as well. And I feel like Auburn last week against Vanderbilt was able to neutralize Pavia very well. Like, they kind of kept him out of having a big game on the ground. And his passing numbers, look, he threw for 2 touchdowns, but at the same time, he wasn't throwing all over the field. He only completed 9 passes. So if you can get something similar like that from the South Carolina defense, I feel like you're in a great spot. Whereas I feel like Sellers, we'll see how he does against Vandy's defense, but we heard so much talk about how good A&M was, this and that. I feel like he can really bounce off that game that he had and just keep it going.
Well, if you tell me that Lenore Sellers is going to run the exact same way he ran this past weekend, where he's eluding tacklers and running over guys and, forcing missed tackles, I'd take him against anyone.
Oh, honestly.
Like that was from a pure running perspective, that was the best we've seen Sellers this year by far. And if he can replicate that in every single game, there's no reason this offense can't win all these games.
It just felt like a video game where you're really jamming at the controls and stuff. It was just crazy seeing, like, how often he would avoid pressure and stuff. And that's a real kudos to him because he is a great athlete. And I think that's what separates him from a lot of guys that you want to stack him up against other mobile quarterbacks. This guy is everything you want. He's like the modern day, although I think somewhat similar to Cam Newton, I guess, like back when he was at Auburn, just a big guy that can really move around super well. And he's also coming along well as a passer. So I think he's clicking at the right time, and I feel like the best is still yet to come.
Speaking of Diego Pavia as well, he's been banged up quite a bit this year. He was listed for the first time on their injury report last night as probable, which does mean he is going to play. But as somebody that does carry the rock, he's gotten more carries than anybody on the team, leads the team in rushing. Those hits can certainly add up. And you mentioned Auburn being able to keep him in check a little bit, and as well as the entire Vanderbilt offense, last week. So you do wonder what kind of shape is he in coming into Saturday. Is he 80%, 90%? And how much will taking on South Carolina's pass rush, taking on these speedy and physical linebackers, how much is that going to wear on him over the course of 4 quarters?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, man, is like, what is it going to take? Is it just one big hit that kind of like sets the tone for like the rest of the day for how this is going to go? Like, I'm not sure. I think we're going to learn very early in this game what we're going to get from Pavia. Like, those first few drives of the game, kind of just like Saturday, where Sellers was able to drive down the field and score. If that happens again, it's like, okay, this team's in business. Whereas with, Vanderbilt, you really got to make sure you're keeping him from scrambling around and moving however he wants.
And obviously we have rules now against, illegal hits and things like that. But you lay a good hit on Pavia that's
gonna sting.
Within reason, within the rules. It's not targeting or roughing the passer or anything like that. On one of those first couple drives, get in his head a little bit. Make him think twice about saying, all right, well, maybe I'll try and, because here's the thing. He doesn't slide. He is a physical runner. He's not allowed to take blockers on. He tries to get extra yards, but you lay a nice little hit on him early in that game. Maybe he does say, you know what, I'm going to slide about 3 yards short. And those kind of things add up as the game goes along if you can get him playing on his heels a little bit.
Definitely. We know how good this team is on third down, so you're definitely going to have to keep that in mind. Like if you're forcing Pavia to slide, and it's like a third down situation, that's going to make it really tough on Vanderbilt to consistently convert. Like, if they do convert, hats off to them. They're just that good. But I feel like South Carolina, like you said, if they can get a few licks on him, obviously within the rules, I feel like that's going to really force him to, kind of make some tougher decisions as the game goes along.
Going back to South Carolina's offense, we've talked about the past 2 years in the month of November, one side of the ball, last year being defense, the year before that being offense, took significant steps forward compared to what they were doing earlier on in the season. And when you look at the numbers of what South Carolina was averaging compared to what they did last weekend against A&M, it's pretty staggering. They came into the A&M game averaging 28 points per game offensively, scored 44. Last week, they came in averaging 186 pass yards per game. They put up 244. They were averaging 160 yards per game rushing. They put up 286, and they were averaging 4.5 sacks allowed, and last week they allowed 0. So all these numbers, huge jumps in the right direction. And again, that's not going to be the case every single week, but if you can keep performing above where you've been this season, again, you're going to be in position to win all these games, closing out the year.
Definitely. And look, I think the numbers are great from last week. At the same time, we got to remember that Sellers also did a great job of avoiding pressure and breaking out of a lot of potential sacks and lost yardage. So, look, a lot of credit needs to go to him. At the same time, though, the offensive line did just about everything it needed to do in that game. That's the mindset they need to have, is that, Shane challenged everyone to be more physical in that game. And I think specifically he was probably talking about the offensive line against A&M. If they have that mindset, like, hey, we are going to be the more physical team today and we are going to win that battle, I think that really puts them in a good position to go up against anyone.
Another key for this game on both sides of the football is going to be third downs. We'll dive into that coming up next. It is Thursday here on the game. Got a couple things going on. Elijah Campbell is going to be broadcasting and hanging out at Dillon Columbia Supply Company at 320 Orchard Drive in West Columbia today from noon until 2. We'll be checking in with him a couple times over the course of those 2 hours on the halftime show with myself and Terry Ford. Then tonight at 6 o'clock, Carolina Calls with Shane Beamer and Todd Ellis breaking down this weekend's game against Vanderbilt. You can listen to that here in Columbia and in Myrtle Beach. And then Thursday Night Football, the Bengals and the Ravens. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the hour. Pregame coverage at 7:30 and kickoff a little after 8:15, all right here on the game. Third downs. Who has the advantage in this matchup between the Gamecocks and the Commodores? Hit that next. Extra Point, Tyler and Jack here on the game. Tyler Head here for Underdog Fantasy. If you've not downloaded the Underdog Fantasy app, what are you waiting for? You're watching these sports anyway. Why not win some money while doing so? You can create entries with all of your favorite sports and mix and match across your favorites for a shot to win real cash prizes and turn your sports opinions into real money. I also have Underdog's Double Flex, where you can even take a couple of losses and still end up with a winning entry. They have Underdog Rescues as well, where you can earn your money back and receive a promo for an early injury causes your entry to lose. Tonight, I've got Jamar Chase higher than 80.5 receiving yards as they go along on Thursday Night Football. They have discounts as well. You'll get adjusted projections on certain player stats to give you a better chance at a big victory. You can download the app and sign up with promo code THEGAME1075 and deposit now to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's promo code THEGAME1075. Must be 18 or older and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
That's definitely one of their success to their victories this year. They've done an outstanding job of just converting, moving the chains, and keeping the ball. Not a lot of turnovers. The ball is king to them, obviously, and I do feel like, obviously, just like we talk all the time, it's that first and second down where you got to get yourself in a really good position to get into a third and medium plus or a third and long.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Thursday. That, of course, was Clayton White yesterday speaking to the media, previewing Saturday's matchup with Vanderbilt. And third downs are going to be such a key in this game because when you look at, particularly as he's talking about there, Vanderbilt's offense versus South Carolina's defense, it's a bit of a strength on strength. Nationally, Vanderbilt completing 46% of their third downs, which is 23rd best in the nation. Defensively, South Carolina only allowing opponents 33% conversions, which is 32nd best in the nation. So these two teams right on about the same accord there. And I really think the game is going to be won or lost on who can be better on third down.
Most definitely. Like Vanderbilt, you want to look at the reasons why they've been so successful this year. Look no further than how they've been able to convert on these third down situations, especially against Alabama. That game, they went 12 of 18 on third down, and that proved to be a huge difference in a game. It allowed them to extend a lot of these drives that, yeah, you put up 40 points, but you did it the tough way. You had to convert when you needed to. And, yeah, people are going to say, oh, Alabama's defense isn't all that good. But, look, it's Alabama, and you were able to do what you were able to do against the Tide. So, look, that is going to be the make or break type of thing that happens in this game.
And we talk about how similar these offenses are, and we'll get into South Carolina's third down conversions here in just a second. But when you have an offense that's predicated so much on the run, particularly when it comes to the quarterback taking the ball himself and somebody that doesn't complete a high percentage of its passes more often than not, they got to avoid being in third and long, because when you look at their numbers, when they've been in 3rd and 5 or more against SEC opponents, Vanderbilt's only converted 30% of the time. In most games, they don't convert any of those at greater than 5 yards. So they're really good at winning on 1st and 2nd down and getting to that 3rd to 1 to 4 area, which they convert very easily. But you get them past that, and then they're in trouble, which is going to be a big key on Saturday, is stopping them or at least limiting their progress on 1st and 2nd down to get them uncomfortable on 3rd.
Most definitely. The last thing you want them to do, and again, this kind of goes back in line with what we were talking about with Pavia, you do not want to have him running all over you on Saturday. Like, you got to be able to contain him, and then that makes it tougher. Like, you get some TFLs and sacks, that's going to force 2nd and long, and then it gets to, if it's even on 2nd down, it's 3rd and long. So you definitely want to get them into some 3rd and long situations for sure.
And then, as I mentioned, Pavia, not the most prolific passer in the world. Certainly had some good games like against Alabama earlier this year, but he's only completing 37% of his passes greater than 10 yards, and completion percentage in general past that point is, or his completion percentage in general is about 50%. As they're going to have to again force them into being uncomfortable on those 3rd and longs, and really just have to cover up Eli Stowers, who is his go-to guy who transferred over with him from New Mexico State at the tight end spot.
Yeah, look, Stowers has been really good for that team, and honestly, it's not even just those two guys. This is a very good complementary football team, but Stowers, 38 catches, over 500 yards, 4 touchdowns, that's a tight end doing all that. That is going to be something that South Carolina is going to have to really focus in on.
A correction from what I said a second ago. Pavia is only attempting 37% of his passes greater than 10 yards and only completing 50% of those. So, again, not what they want to do offensively. They like to keep it short behind the line of scrimmage, short dump-off passes, screens, those kind of things. And, again, if you can get them at greater than 3rd and 5, they are not built to convert that at a high clip.
And that's the thing South Carolina is just going to have to be ready for. They're going to have to be staying locked in and not allowing all these short yardage plays go for big yards. You know what I mean? So I think South Carolina has done a really good job against multiple different looking offenses this year. Now can they do it against Vanderbilt, which I think they're going to be very creative this weekend. And
on the flip side of things, South Carolina themselves has had plenty of 3rd down struggles this year. As I mentioned, they are on the lower end when it comes to their own 3rd down conversions, completing only, 33%, which is 119th in the nation. So certainly an issue on Saturday. When you look at the average down and distance, which, again, kind of similar to Vanderbilt, when you get in these longer 3rd downs, they're hard to convert because of the way that your offense is built, or you don't have a prolific passing game, and that limits what you can do when it comes to running the football. Last week against Texas A&M, I will give them credit. They had their best down and distance of the season on 3rd down at 5.8, but they still only converted on 4 of 13, which is right at that 30% number once again.
Yeah, I think they've been a lot better converting on 3rd downs lately and getting out of those types of situations. But you're right. It still is a work in progress, I think, for them. But the good news is, look, when you're putting up 44 points and over 500 yards of offense, I think you can live with not converting on a few 3rd downs. Now, is that going to be the case again this weekend? No, I think this is going to be a rock fight. I think it's going to be tough, and probably a game where we're seeing you got to probably score in the mid-20s to probably win. But for South Carolina, that might be enough. If your defense is locking in and getting I think 3rd downs are going to be massive in this game. You keep Vanderbilt from extending drives and going 10 plays, because they also like to take up a ton of time on the clock. So if you're keeping Vanderbilt off the field a good bit and your offense is just doing enough, you should feel good about where this game ends.
Now, last week, Vanderbilt, in a game against Auburn, their defense really won it for them. They held Auburn to just 15% on 3rd downs and had him in an average of 3rd and 7 in that game. So that would spell disaster for South Carolina if that's the case on Saturday. So we'll see how big 3rd downs do end up becoming in that game up in Nashville. Want to get your thoughts as well. 803-404-6100. We head out to Love Chevrolet phone lines. Rob wants to weigh in on apparently something Clark Lee has said leading up to this game. Rob, appreciate your call. What's on your mind?
Hey, gentlemen, hope y'all are doing well. Thank you for taking the call. Yeah, just one thing that really stuck out to me in Clark Lee's weekly preview was that he notably mentioned that his team, Pavia, and some of their attacking on the edge looked a little slower in the Auburn game. And he said they were going to be dialing practice back and essentially taking the pads off even sooner and trying to get essentially kind of like a quasi-bye week is the way I took it in terms of rest. I think that's in stark contrast to what we see from Carolina, where they just look as fresh and healthy, really, as they have all year. I do think South Carolina wins this game really convincingly because of that reason, not just because of talent and scheme. I think they're close there, but I think energy-wise and physicality-wise, this is just going to be too much for Vanderbilt. But I am curious as to your guys' thoughts on what Clark Lee said in that press conference.
Yeah, appreciate the call again, 803-404-6100. And that is an interesting comment. And when you look at the way certain teams are built, certain teams like South Carolina seem to play their best football the later you get into the year, and that can go back to conditioning and all sorts of things as to why that goes as the season goes along. And other teams kind of start to taper off as the season goes along. And maybe we're looking at Vanderbilt being one of those kind of teams. Again, we can't really go year to year and compare because, look, Vanderbilt's just kind of been rough in general the past couple years under Clark Lee. But I'm looking at their offensive production in total, in terms of total yards over these past couple weeks, and you are seeing a slow decline. Now, again, they went up against number 5 Texas team, only put up 269 yards, but they went up against Auburn last week, a team that they should have been able to move the ball a little bit better against, only put up 227 yards. So maybe they are starting to taper off a little bit after having some of those explosive offensive performances, 418 yards against Alabama, and that upset they pulled a couple weeks ago for 324 yards against Missouri. In that game, they really should have won. So they are starting to trend in the wrong direction a little bit. Could do with help. As we mentioned, Diego Pavia, Cedric Alexander, 2 guys that are listed as probable for this weekend that will play, but certainly not at 100%. And again, when you have Carolina surging, maybe Vanderbilt's kind of heading in the wrong direction. That could hopefully benefit the Gamecocks on Saturday.
Definitely. And Clark Lee was talking about, I think he got asked about, how do you kind of stop South Carolina's defensive line? And he brought up exactly what you said against Auburn with some of their struggles, because look, they would get into some tougher third down situations, and what he basically said is that if you get like past like 3rd and 7, you have 3rd and 7 or longer, you're going to have to face the pressure that comes off the edge with this defensive line. Like you're facing Kennard and Dylan Stewart, guys like that. That is going to be a real problem. So I think that is where it really starts. Like, can you stop this team on 1st and 2nd down? And can you make them make mistakes like penalties and stuff and TFLs and all of that? And I think if that's the case, you're getting into some situations where you feel good about getting stops on 3rd down, because that is what you need to do against this team.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, especially with the rain thrown in there, could be kind of a low-scoring, slug-it-out kind of game that maybe getting to 24 points might be the key to winning this game, so we'll see what happens there. Plenty more to break down as the morning goes along. I want to jump into some basketball coming up next. Big news for the women's basketball team on a player returning, and then looking ahead to South Carolina men trying to rebound after the loss to North Florida on Monday with their second game of the season coming up tomorrow night against South Carolina State. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you on your Thursday here on The Game.
Hey, want to tell you about our show sponsor, PL Wine Pool and Spa. They're an award-winning swimming pool builder that's been in the business for 25 years with more than 40 years of pool construction experience. They service the entire Midlands area, whether you're looking for weekly cleaning maintenance or chlorine to salt conversion with services like safety cover installs and safety fence installs. You can check out all their offerings at the showroom in Lexington, South Carolina, and you can talk to their experts about any and everything you might need. Their retail store is located at 5541 Sunset Boulevard in Lexington. Again, that is 5541 Sunset Boulevard. And you can also check them out online at plwinepools.com. So want to thank PL Wine Pool and Spa for being a wonderful sponsor of 107.5 The Game. Y'all definitely go check them out.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry along with you here on your Thursday on the Game. It's time for a Laying the Wood segment brought to you by our friends over at Georgia Pacific. And in this instance, we'll talk from laying the wood to returning to the hardwood. In this instance, as it was announced yesterday that Ashlyn Watkins has had her suspension lifted after the charges of assault and kidnapping were dismissed against her a little bit earlier on this month. So she is cleared to return to basketball activities with South Carolina's women's team. We don't have a timetable for her exact return. There could be internal discipline once she's now returned to the team of sitting out more or facing further suspension. We don't know any details on that as of right now, but we do know at some point this season, we're set to see Ashlyn Watkins make a return to the court.
That's going to be huge for South Carolina. And look, I think if you're the Gamecocks and you're a Gamecock fan, you're probably glad that she got cleared. And look, South Carolina, they won that first game, but they struggled mightily, I think, especially in the paint, because they don't have Camila Cardoso out there anymore. And she was a force. But you get someone like Watkins back. Look, she's only 6'3", but she can go out there and get the boards. Like, she was a rebound machine last year, and you add that into the mix whenever she comes back. And look, another thing we have to think about, has she been doing basketball activities? Has she been working out? Obviously, she's been focused on her trial and stuff, but what kind of shape is she going to be in when she returns? Do you know what I mean?
Well, and look, even if she was doing basketball things in addition to dealing with all of her court proceedings, there's a difference between doing things on your own and doing things within what is probably the best women's basketball facility in the entire nation. So there's going to be a getting back up to speed process. So she's not going to be out there, Sunday against NC State. We don't know what that timetable for return is. Whenever she does get back into shape, and I don't think it's going to take all that long, she should be able to jump right in and continue to contribute as she had done, for so long. And when, again, you look at what this team lost, really the only loss they had was to Camila Cardoso, you knew you're losing size. And look, Chloe Kitts went out there and had her double-double on Monday against Michigan and grabbed 14 rebounds, but she could use some help. And Ashlyn Watkins certainly brings more of that physicality to grabbing boards, like you said, that is going to help this team out tremendously, because nobody should be able to go toe-to-toe with them when it comes to rebounds. So that was the surprising thing on Monday night against Michigan.
And I think another part of it was, Chloe did a great job grabbing boards and stuff, like 14 of them. That's fantastic. But Sanaya Fagan was starting on Monday and just didn't have a great night. Like, she played 11 minutes and started, but she didn't have any rebounds in that game. And that's kind of where you see the issue here, is that, look, South Carolina could have probably won this game by more had they collected more rebounds and gotten second chances. But unfortunately, that's just not the case. And when Chloe Kitts can't do it all on her own, so you got to have someone else out there. And that, if they're going to have to figure it out for the time being, but do you continue to roll with Fagan? Do you just kind of hope and pray that things will work until Watkins comes back? But when she is back out there, and hopefully she's up to basketball speed by the time she gets back, it's going to be really, I think, a lot more better that, they'll be fine out there, I think.
And again, game number 2 coming up for them on Sunday as they take on NC State. Again, the team they beat in the Final Four en route to taking on Iowa, and of course winning the national championship last year. Flip side of things, the men move on to game number 2 tomorrow night, taking on South Carolina State after, again, just the shocking loss to North Florida earlier on in the week, where, effort was the word that kept popping up after that game, of how invested South Carolina seemed in that game and how clunky the offense was, defense as well. How much can change in 4 days? We'll see.
I don't want to say a mess, but they did lose. That's the thing. Look, here's the thing. South Carolina needs to come out playing with more energy, I think, right out of the gate. It's not that, the shots that weren't falling right out of the gate and stuff. I get that, but they just looked like they were just going through the motions. They looked kind of just not. I'm sure they were happy to be out there, but you would have thought, like, this is a team that isn't coming off a 26-win season, NCAA tournament appearance. You'd have thought this is a team that was coming off the 11-win season they had, and they all hope is lost and stuff. So I'd like to see them come out with more energy, play more physical. For one, you have the more physical team compared to these mid-major programs. You should not be losing the rebound battle. And I think that's the big thing, is that they need to get back to the fundamentals, get the rebound, stop losing the ball. There's so many times in that game where the ball just went out of bounds and it was a turnover. So South Carolina needs to play a lot more cleaner basketball and also do the other things like hit your free throws, make your layups, because that was getting out of hand on Monday.
Yeah, certainly so. The lack of offensive rebounding, he got beat 15-9 by the Ospreys, the other day was certainly concerning, but really the free throws are what stand out. Because again, they're called free throws for a reason. Those are your free points. Those are the most easy points to make. And, like Coach Paris said on Monday, it's not like we don't practice it. And you go to any basketball practice, from the Pee Wee level all the way up to the NBA, guess what they're doing in practice? They are practicing free throws. So there's no excuse for being as abysmal as they were, barely over 50%, because if you continue to shoot like that, you're going to lose a lot of these games before you get into conference play.
Yeah, and this is not just a one-game sample size. We've seen it be an issue before, like last year against Georgia and stuff, where you go 17 and 32 at the line. You have to be better when you have your opportunities. And 25 free throw attempts, you should be knocking down closer to probably about 19 to 20 of them. Like, you can miss a few here and there, that's fine. But when you're routinely, like when people are probably like anticipating you're going to at least miss one, I think that is where it gets bad. Again, it all comes down to, okay, probably just got to keep shooting free throws in practice and stuff. It's also such a mental thing, I feel like, because when you go to the line, like Nick Pringle, for instance, you went 3 of 8 at the line the other day. I think that's a mental thing where it's like, oh, man, like, here we go again. Like, you can't be missing these shots. These are free points. And in a game that you lose by 3, you're probably looking back at all the things you did wrong, but the free points you could have had, that's what makes the difference.
Yeah, and being more efficient from the outside as well certainly helped. Again, on Monday, 5-16 from beyond the arc. Zach Davis, 1 of 5. Studi, 2 of 4. Cam Scott, 1 of 2. Jamari Thomas, 0 of 2. Just a little. And look, you don't have to be the best team in the world at shooting threes, but being a little bit more efficient from the outside there would certainly help things along. Again, if you make 1 more of those or 2 more of those, you end up winning this game on Monday against North Florida, a team that, again, was very aggressive when it came to how much they shot from the outside.
They just wanted it more. I think it was easy as that. And this is a team that loves to shoot the three-point ball more than anyone else, and that is exactly what we saw on Monday. Now, with SC State, you should be able to win that game, no problem. But again, it is going to come down to the fact that it's so simple. Can South Carolina get off to a good start and kind of never let SC State hang around? Because that is exactly what they did against North Florida on Monday, where they'd get out to a little bit of a lead, and then the shots would start not falling, and then North Florida would eventually make the comeback, which they did. So you got to keep these teams from not being able to hang around. I think that's going to be the key on Friday.
Yeah, I think the comfort level is a really big thing here. And I'm looking at South Carolina State, and funny enough, when they took on Morris the other day, a game they won pretty handily there, they attempted 34 three-pointers in that game. So that's a team that's also going to be very aggressive coming in and be wanting to try and shoot the lights out, much like North Florida did. And I think, like you said, getting off to that good start and just give yourself the confidence. Give yourself a little bit of a cushion to play with, because that's something they never had on Monday. You kept saying, okay, you got a 5-point lead, you got a 4-point lead, pull away, get up to 10, get up to 12, and all that kind of stuff, and kind of settle in. And they were never able to do that. And we'll see if they can do that tomorrow night against the Bulldogs.
Most definitely. We're going to have to see what happens. But, yeah, you need to see the confidence a little bit restored in this group. Like, again, go into the weekend with a win, come back next week, because, hey, you're playing Indiana next weekend at Assembly Hall, and that could be a real test of, like, okay, where's your team at 4 games into the season?
That is a significant jump, not only in competition level, but the atmosphere of playing at Assembly Hall. And maybe they'll be a little more distracted because anything of football's really good this year, and maybe they're not as locked in on basketball just yet as they would be in years past. But still, that is a daunting task and is really going to give us a good idea of where this team is. Still 2 months away from conference play, but should give us an indicator of how much improvement they're going to need if they want to hang in this league this year.
Definitely. If you can get a win right there, I think that kind of reiterates, hey, this team's going to be good again this year. But, hey, it's still very early, 29 games to go. We'll see what happens this weekend and then go from there.
Tomorrow night, 6:30 pregame here on the game for men's basketball, taking on South Carolina State for that 7 o'clock tip. And then immediately following coverage of the game will be an abbreviated Love Chevrolet High School football scoreboard show with Justin Hall, Elijah Campbell, and, of course, Ed Bird. That's all Friday right here on the game. Talk a little NFL Thursday Night Football coming up tonight. An intriguing matchup between the Bengals and the Ravens. What happened to that next? It is the Extra Point. Tyler and Jack along with you on your Thursday here on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Sarah and Jack Veltri along with you on your rainy Thursday morning here on the game. Thursday means it's time for Thursday Night Football tonight at 7:30 for the pregame here on the game as the Bengals and the Ravens clash in a classic AFC North battle. It was only a couple weeks ago when these two teams played each other and had that wild 41-38 overtime game. The Bengals missed a field goal when it looked like they were going to win the game. The Ravens drove down, got the field goal themselves, and walked out with that 41-38 victory. And certainly looks like we're going to be in for a very entertaining game once again tonight. Look, we do NFL top 5, bottom 5 every single week. And the Ravens, I think, have been in our top 5 every single week so far this year, even though they did not get off to the best start. But you look on the other side of the Bengals, and since that game against the Ravens, where they lost, they are 3-1. Only loss coming to the Eagles 2 weeks ago, and their offense seems to be clicking into gear a little bit.
Yeah, they got off to a rough start, and that's the thing with the Bengals is, they have all the talent in the world. It's just, can they get out of their own way? And look, in that Ravens loss they had earlier in the year when they lost 41-38, Zach Taylor's decision-making kind of cost them in that game. So I think with this game, you definitely are going to have a lot of trouble because this is on the road in Baltimore, hostile crowd. But I feel like if you're Joe Burrow and you're in this offense and you got all the pieces, you can go out here and beat anyone. It's just, are you going to be able to make the right decisions from a Zach Taylor standpoint?
You say hostile crowd. I don't believe any crowd can really be that hostile on a Thursday night. Just being honest.
Yeah, but it's on the road. Baltimore loves their NFL football. That's
they
the
do.
thing.
Yeah, no, it's certainly going to be hopefully a good game, which, again, Thursday Night Football sucks more often than not. That game last week with the Jets and who the Jets
Texans.
played last week? The Texans. That was just a sloppy, ugly game. But this one, kind of like the Falcons and the Bucs a couple weeks ago, has potential to be a very fun, back-and-forth, high-scoring affair.
No, most definitely. You're definitely not wrong about these Thursday night games being dreadful. It's been a weird slate this year, but you know what? This is a game that's a rivalry game. The AFC North always packs a good punch, and look, a lot's on the line in this game. Like the Ravens, they are continuing to look like probably probably the best team in the AFC right now if the Chiefs run undefeated. And look, Derrick Henry, he's a monster. How do you stop him? Lamar Jackson, as we know, is a video game. He is so tough to stop, and that offense, if you can just get a average defensive performance, and I feel like it's weird saying that because the Ravens always seem pretty good defensively, but this year's kind of been a little hit or miss with Zach Orr as the DC now. So can you go ahead and get enough stoppage on defense so where your offense scores like 30 points and they win this game?
Well, it's really funny because Terry, of course, is a resident Baltimore Ravens fan here, and as exciting as this offense is and the start that they've gotten off to this year, it's always met with, yeah, do it in January. Beat the Chiefs, because that has been your Achilles heel. You have looked like the better team several times, and when you get in the AFC Championship game, you can't do anything. Chiefs win, go on to another Super Bowl, and that is their Everest right now. They have to be able to get past the Chiefs at some point, because again, kind of similarly, and again, the Colts obviously got theirs, the one time back in 2006, but Peyton Manning and the Colts just had so much trouble getting past the Patriots in the playoffs. And if the Patriots were in the NFC, they would have gone to so many Super Bowls because the NFC was an open door for so many years, just revolving teams in and out. But because you had two of the best teams on one side of the bracket, the Patriots ended up winning out more often than not and going to all the Super Bowls, and Peyton Manning staying at home watching them.
And it's the same thing with the Ravens are not the only team that have this kryptonite with the Chiefs. Like the Buffalo Bills are the same exact way. A lot of these teams cannot get past the Chiefs just because of the Chiefs. They're very good. But the Ravens, it feels like this year, again, the big thing is if their defense can hold up just a tiny bit and let that offense go to work, as long as Lamar and Derrick Henry do not disappear in the playoffs, you got as good of a chance as anyone to make it there. But here's my question for you. By season's end, do we think the Bengals will end up making the playoffs? Because, look, obviously their work's cut out for them. 4-1 on the year. They've been a good road team this year, but if you lose this game, that's 6 losses, and at best you could potentially finish 11-6. that would probably make the playoffs, but that would require you not to lose another game again. So that's the thing. You kind of have to win out most of these games.
I think it really depends on what version of Joe Burrow we're going to get. Now, the last time the Ravens and the Bengals played, he threw 5 touchdown passes, threw another 5 last weekend when they played the Raiders as well. So if he's heating up at the right time, and obviously he's got Jamar Chase out there on the outside and the good dynamic they have, they are always going to be capable of beating anybody. And when I look at the remaining schedule, and of course they have their divisional games, Ravens have to play the Steelers 2 more times, but the Browns, that shouldn't be too much of a trouble for them. They they take on the Titans. They have the Broncos in out of divisional games, the Cowboys as well. Like, they have a moderately manageable schedule for the most part that could put them in position to make a run at the playoffs.
Yeah, I think at bare minimum, you probably need to finish the season 10-7. Even then, I don't even know if that's going to be enough to make the playoffs. More realistically, 11-6 would probably be the way to go. But yeah, I mean, you set yourself up for failure losing, your first 3 games of the year, and then you're kind of having to work your way back. But hey, the Bengals, they're about as good as anyone when they're clicking on all cylinders. So let's see if they can do it tonight on a Thursday night.
Here's something to look out for tonight as well. The Ravens are looking to tie the NFL record for most consecutive 100-yard rushing games at 43, going up against a Bengals defense that is 27th in the league in rush yards allowed.
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, that's the thing, man. Like, King Henry, man, he's been very hard to stop this year. He's looked like his old self out there after having some, I don't even want to call it down years, but not as great years with Tennessee. Look, he's the X factor to this offense. When he goes, they go. And everyone wants to say it's Lamar Jackson and everyone else. It feels like Derrick Henry and everyone else. So when he gets going, he's the guy.
I mean, those Tennessee offenses were very much one-trick ponies. Like, all right, we're going to ride Derrick Henry, let him carry the ball 40 times a game, and then Ryan Tannehill, you throw like 10 or 12 passes, and we'll be fine. So his workload has not diminished, but he's not the focal point of the offense because you do have Lamar Jackson. You have a lot of dynamic weapons out there that can take some attention away from Derrick Henry, which allows him to eat on the regular like he's been doing.
No, most definitely. Like, it's going to be very exciting to see what happens tonight. Look, this is a great quarterback battle, though. Lamar, Joe Burrow, this is what you want. This is what you dream of.
Going to be a fun one tonight. We'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow, as well as give our final thoughts previewing South Carolina and Vanderbilt. That'll do it for the Extra Point. Coming up next is the Gamecock Club Hour with Jay Swoda from Gamecock Baseball here on your Thursday on the Game.